Did you know that one of the most legendary voices in soul music died not only in tragedy, but with a secret so dark it shocked even those closest to him? This is the story of Marvin Gaye, the voice behind What's Going On and Sexual Healing. The man who helped define the sound of Motown died broke, heartbroken, and betrayed in the very house he bought for peace. Shot by his own father in 1984, just one day before his 45th birthday, Marvin's story isn't just about talent, it's about trauma, silence, and a secret he may have taken to the grave. In this video, we're stepping inside the abandoned Los Angeles home where Marvin Gaye lived his final moments. From the chilling last words he whispered to the shocking truth about his net worth when he died, we'll uncover how a legendary career ended in heartbreak, chaos, and a tragedy that still haunts music history. What really happened in that house? And how could a superstar end up with negative $9 million in the bank? Let's open the door to Marvin Gaye's final chapter, because this is the part of his story the music never told: the tragic ending of Marvin Gaye. On the afternoon of April 1st, 1984, Marvin Gaye stepped in to calm a heated argument between his parents over a misplaced insurance document. It was a minor dispute, but trying to mediate it would cost him his life. To fully understand the tragedy of Marvin Gaye's death, we have to look back, not just to 1984, but to the roots of his deeply troubled relationship with his father, Marvin Gaye Sr. Marvin Sr. was a Pentecostal minister affiliated with the House of God, a church known for its rigid, unforgiving rules. He brought those strict beliefs into the Gaye household, where he ruled with absolute authority. But beyond the surface of religious devotion was a man riddled with contradictions. He struggled to keep steady work, battled alcoholism, and lived with personal conflicts, including a tendency to wear women's clothing in secret. Most devastating of all, he was abusive, physically, emotionally, and especially toward his son, Marvin Jr. Marvin's sister Jean recalled that from age 7 into his teen years, Marvin endured relentless beatings. Marvin once described life under his father as living with a king, an all-powerful, changeable, and cruel king. If not for his mother Alberta's support, Marvin believed he wouldn't have survived. Alberta confirmed the fractured bond. Her husband, she said, never wanted Marvin, never liked him, and resented the love she gave their son. Yet ironically, it was Marvin Sr. who first introduced Marvin to music. At 5, he taught him piano by ear and encouraged him to sing in the church choir. For a brief moment, music was a rare bridge between father and son, before that connection was shattered forever. By 1984, Marvin Gaye was 44 years old and staging a much-needed comeback. After years of uneven output and personal turmoil, his post-Motown album Midnight Love had catapulted him back to the top. The album's breakout single, Sexual Healing, wasn't just a hit. It became the defining R&B anthem of the decade, spending 10 weeks at #1 on the Hot Black Singles chart. For a moment, it seemed like Marvin was finally back on track. To support the album, Gaye launched a 4-month tour beginning on April 18th in San Diego. It started off promising. He was in good spirits, mostly clean and performing well. But that stability didn't last long. As the tour snaked its way across the country, his cocaine use spiraled out of control. The deeper he fell into addiction, the more paranoid he became. Soon, he was convinced someone was out to kill him. He traveled with a team of bodyguards and wore a bulletproof vest backstage. In Boston, he shocked reporters by claiming he'd hired famed attorney F. Lee Bailey to investigate what he believed was an attempt to poison him. He even credited his survival to a mystical potion from activist Dick Gregory. After the tour, emotionally and physically wrecked, Gaye withdrew to his parents' home in Los Angeles at 2101 South Gramercy Place. Marvin Gaye was back living at his parents' home, and the tension inside those walls was palpable. On the second floor of the house, Marvin Sr., Alberta, and Marvin Jr. each occupied one of 3 adjoining bedrooms. The couple hadn't shared a bed in over a decade. Meanwhile, Marvin's younger brother Frankie and his wife Irene lived out back in a detached guest house, separated from the daily storm brewing inside. Marvin Sr. spent most of his time locked in his room, drinking vodka alone. Marvin Jr., increasingly withdrawn, stayed in his own room battling his demons in silence. His mother, Alberta, saw the toll it was taking. She recalled how Marvin would come to her and promise, "Mother, this is the last time." "I promise." But the cycle never ended. Whenever he ran out, one phone call would bring another delivery of cocaine to the door. At times, Marvin would call for company. Groupies, old flames, even his ex-wives Anna and Janice. Paranoia was consuming him, and he had a high-tech security system installed throughout the home, convinced danger was around every corner. But in the end, it wasn't fame, addiction, or paranoia that ended Marvin Gaye's life. It was something far more mundane, a missing insurance policy. On Saturday, March 31st, 1984, his parents argued throughout the day about the misplaced document. His father raged, accusing Alberta of losing it, yelling throughout the house. Marvin eventually stepped in, demanding his father stop harassing his mother. Though Marvin Sr. backed off, the shouting didn't stop. He went to bed angry that night, and he woke up the next morning, April 1st, just as furious. No one could have guessed how the day would end. Around 12:30 p.m. on April 1st, Marvin Gaye Sr. shouted up the stairs at his wife, who was sitting in their son's bedroom. Marvin Jr., hearing the commotion, stepped out and leaned over the upstairs railing, shouting back. If his father wanted to speak to his mother, he said, he should come up and say it to her face like a man. That challenge set something off. According to Alberta, Marvin Sr. charged up the stairs and stormed into his son's room, still yelling at her about the missing insurance document. Marvin Jr., already on edge, leapt up from the bed and told his father to leave immediately. But Marvin Sr. wouldn't budge. In a moment of frustration and fury, Marvin Jr. shoved his father out of the room and into the hallway, knocking the older man to the floor. What followed was a blur of violence. Marvin reportedly began kicking and punching his father as he lay there. Alberta eventually stepped between them and pulled her son away. Marvin Sr. got to his feet, said nothing, and quietly walked back to his own bedroom at the end of the hall. Just minutes later, he returned, this time with a .38 caliber handgun, the same gun Marvin Jr. had given him months earlier for protection. Without a word, he raised the weapon and pulled the trigger. Marvin Gaye Sr. fired the gun straight into his son's chest, hitting him in the heart. Marvin's mother, standing just 8 feet away, later said, "My husband didn't say anything. He just pointed the gun at Marvin and shot." The bullet tore through Marvin's body, piercing his right lung, heart, diaphragm, liver, stomach, and kidney, before coming to a stop near his left side. As Marvin collapsed to the floor, slumped against his bed, his father calmly stepped closer and fired a second time. That bullet struck just below Marvin's left clavicle. The gunshots jolted Marvin's brother Frankie, who rushed into the house. His wife, Irene, immediately called 911. When Frankie found Marvin, he was barely conscious, blood seeping from both wounds. In a weak whisper, Marvin said something Frankie would never forget. "I got what I wanted. I couldn't do it myself, so I had him do it. It's good. I ran my race. There's no more left in me." When paramedics arrived, they refused to enter until the weapon was located. Irene searched Marvin Sr.'s bedroom, found the pistol under a pillow, and threw it onto the front lawn. By the time they reached California Hospital Medical Center, just 3 miles away, it was too late. Marvin Gaye was pronounced dead at 1:01 p.m., the day before his 45th birthday. Marvin Gaye Sr. was immediately taken into custody and held at the Los Angeles County Jail on $100,000 bail. Shortly after, he spoke to the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, offering a version of events that differed slightly from what his wife had described. "I pulled the trigger," he said. "The first one didn't seem to bother him. He put his hand up to his face like he'd been hit with a BB, and then I fired again. I was backing towards my room. I was going to go in there and lock the door. This time I heard him say, 'Oh,' and I saw him going down. I do know that I did fire the gun. I was just trying to keep him back off me. I want the world to know it wasn't presumptuous on my part." On November 2nd, 1984, Marvin Sr. stood before Judge Gordon Ringer for sentencing. The judge, stoic and matter-of-fact, called the case one of those terribly tragic cases in which a young life was snuffed out, but concluded that Marvin Jr. had provoked the incident. "It was all his fault," he said, echoing the sentiment of investigators. When asked if he loved his son, Marvin Sr. replied quietly, "Let's say I didn't dislike him." Judge Ringer sentenced him to a 6-year suspended sentence and 5 years of probation. The terrible secret Marvin Gaye died with. Marvin Gaye's life was filled with triumphs and heartbreak, but behind the fame, he carried secrets that would only come to light after his tragic death. Born on April 2, 1939, in Washington, D.C., Marvin grew up in a tough part of town. His family lived in the Fairfax Apartments, a rundown public housing project with no running water or electricity. The buildings were cramped and deteriorating, and Marvin and his friends nicknamed the neighborhood Simple City, a strange blend of urban grit and rural quiet. The Gays followed a denomination called the House of God, a black holiness church that blended Old Testament teachings with a unique mix of Christian and Judaic practices. That strict religious upbringing introduced Marvin to music early. At just 4 years old, he was already singing in church while his father played piano. At 11, Marvin performed "Be My Love" in a school play and stunned the audience. In that moment, he realized music could be more than an escape. It could be his future. Despite the tension at home, Marvin Gaye found peace and purpose in music. School gave him his first real outlet. He joined the Glee Club, quickly became a standout, and threw himself into honing his craft. Singing wasn't just something he enjoyed. It became his lifeline, his escape from the chaos around him. As his father began receiving more invitations to preach at churches and revivals, he often brought Marvin along. Young Marvin would sing, and soon crowds were taking notice. His voice had something special. But with that attention came something darker: jealousy. Marvin Sr. may have seen his son's rising star as a threat to his own sense of importance. By the time Marvin broke into the music industry in the 1960s, he was more than ready to leave his father's grip behind. His early hits with Motown gave him more than just fame. They gave him a taste of freedom. But no matter how high he climbed, the scars from his childhood never fully faded. Interestingly, Marvin didn't start out front and center. He began as a drummer. But with his first big hit, "Stubborn Kind of Fellow," his rich voice and natural charisma pushed him into the spotlight. From there, his career soared. By 1973, he was collaborating with legends like Diana Ross and exploring new creative ground, producing his own records, and even playing every instrument himself. It became clear to everyone around him Marvin Gaye wasn't just a singer, he was redefining soul music. Still, behind the scenes, his personal life remained a tangle of secrets, heartbreak, and emotional turmoil. Marvin Gaye's personal life was just as complicated as his music was soulful, and it all started with his first marriage. He married Anna Gordy, the sister of Motown founder Berry Gordy. Anna was significantly older than Marvin, and the couple struggled to conceive. Eventually, they adopted a baby boy named Marvin III. But the story behind that adoption was far from straightforward. The baby's biological mother was Anna's niece, Denise Gordy, who was only 16 when she gave birth. Years later, author Michael Eric Dyson revealed in his book, Mercy, Mercy Me, The Art, Loves, and Demons of Marvin Gaye, that Marvin himself was the biological father of the child. The relationship with Denise, a minor at the time, was deeply troubling, and Marvin kept the truth hidden for years, likely to avoid legal consequences. He never publicly confirmed his paternity, but the revelation sent shockwaves through those close to him. Despite everything, Marvin and Anna stayed together for a while, though their relationship was anything but easy. Marvin later told biographer David Ritz, "There was tremendous love between us and tremendous need for one another. But I couldn't be controlled, not by a wife, not by a manager, not by a record company. I was born a ram and a rebel." By 1975, Anna had filed for divorce after 12 turbulent years. A year later, Marvin's finances took a steep dive. He was drowning in debt, reportedly owing Anna $600,000 in alimony and facing serious tax issues. Forced to file for bankruptcy, he reached a settlement with Anna. $337,000 would come from the royalties of his next album, and the remaining $293,000 would be paid through future earnings. Marvin Gaye eventually married Janice Hunter, a woman much younger than he was. Together they had 2 children, but the marriage didn't last. By 1979, the couple had separated, and Marvin was left drowning in debt, still paying alimony to both Janice and his first wife, Anna Gordy. It was a chaotic time, and the ongoing legal and financial troubles only added to the emotional weight Marvin was carrying. But out of that turmoil came a spark of inspiration, one that would help him create the music needed to cover his growing debts. When Marvin began working on What's Going On, he was in a fragile mental state. His marriage had fallen apart, and he was still mourning the death of his longtime singing partner, Tammy Terrell. The two had recorded timeless duets like Ain't No Mountain High Enough before Terrell passed away from brain cancer in March 1970 at just 24 years old. Over the course of his Motown career, Marvin had been paired with several duet partners. In 1964, he teamed up with Mary Wells, then the queen of Motown, but their collaboration was short-lived as she soon left the label. Next came Kim Weston, with whom he recorded the hit It Takes Two. She too left Motown shortly after. Another lesser-known partner was Oma Page, often confused on record credits with Oma Hurd. Despite her experience, most of their collaborations never saw the light of day, with only one single released. Marvin's most memorable and successful duet partner was Tammy Terrell. Their musical chemistry was undeniable, and their hits captivated fans. Her untimely death devastated Marvin. Close friend and football star Mel Farr said Marvin became reclusive, rarely leaving his house. His drug use worsened, and he found himself emotionally overwhelmed by both personal grief and national events, especially the 1970 Kent State shootings, where 4 students were killed by the National Guard. "I couldn't sleep, couldn't stop crying," Marvin later told biographer David Ritz in Divided Soul, The Life of Marvin Gaye. In a rare 1971 interview with Disc and Music Echo magazine, Marvin Gaye confessed to feeling deeply lost. "I was terribly disillusioned with life in general," he admitted. One friend recalled a falling out with Marvin over a loan. "He got mad because I wouldn't give him money to buy drugs," they said. "Was it cocaine?" "Yeah," came the answer. Drugs played a major role in Marvin's downfall. Though he first dabbled in cocaine in the 1960s, by the 1970s, his addiction had escalated dramatically. Those close to him described a strange, heartbreaking routine. Marvin would switch between reading scripture and doing lines of coke. It was as if he was trying to soothe his demons with faith, while simultaneously feeding them. But cocaine wasn't the only substance he turned to. Marvin also experimented with PCP, a powerful hallucinogen known for its intense psychological effects. As his drug use worsened, so did his mental health. By 1983, he had attempted suicide twice. Friends and family noticed his decline. "I was with Marvin every day," one confidant recalled. And yeah, I was definitely seeing it happen. At the same time, Marvin was drowning in debt. He owed over $1 million to the IRS, another $600,000 to the state of California, and more than $300,000 in alimony. Hoping a fresh start might help, Marvin left the U.S. and moved to London. But instead of healing, he fell right back into a self-destructive lifestyle, full of drugs, parties, and the same old demons. Things didn't get better for Marvin in London, so he moved once again, this time to Belgium. Surprisingly, this move marked a turning point. In Belgium, Marvin began to pull himself together. He found a friend and supporter in Freddie Cassart, a local businessman who gave him the space and encouragement to refocus on his music. It was during this time, in 1983, that Marvin recorded one of the biggest songs of his career, Sexual Healing. The track was a massive hit and put him back in the public eye, reminding the world of his brilliance. But even with a chart-topping single, Marvin's troubles weren't behind him. The mountain of debt still hung over his head, and his personal struggles hadn't gone away. Every now and then, one friend recalled, we'd smoke together, put coke in the weed and light it up. That was the only way I'd do it. The chaos didn't stop there. Marvin's relationship with Motown began to deteriorate. The breaking point came when the label released his album In Our Lifetime without his approval. They changed the title, removing a crucial question mark, and added production to songs he believed were unfinished. Marvin was livid. To him, that missing punctuation wasn't just grammar, it was the heart of the album's message. Is the world coming to an end in our lifetime? He felt betrayed and creatively undermined, furious that the label would override his vision and ignore his wishes. In 1983, Marvin Gaye made a chilling comment. He said going on tour might kill him. Crushed by debt and owing massive back taxes, he felt he had no other option. So in April, he launched the Sexual Healing Tour in San Diego, hoping it would solve his financial problems. But instead of saving him, the tour only made things worse. Marvin hit the stage in a bold red military-style outfit with gleaming gold buttons, an ensemble now preserved in the Motown Museum. He looked like a star, but inside, he was unraveling. His mental and physical health were deteriorating fast under the weight of it all. As the tour progressed, Marvin became increasingly paranoid. He was convinced people were out to harm him. He hired bodyguards, not as an image move, but out of real fear. He even insisted his sister bring him water on stage, terrified it might be poisoned. Each night, he believed it could be his final performance. The pressure crushed him. He collapsed from exhaustion during the tour and ended up hospitalized in Florida. Eventually, Marvin called it quits and returned to his family home, hoping to find rest. But instead, he walked back into the chaos he'd tried to leave behind. And the rest, as we know, ended in tragedy, bringing Marvin Gaye's remarkable but troubled life to a heartbreaking close. When Marvin Gaye died, he was deep in debt. According to Celebrity Net Worth, his net worth was estimated at negative $9 million. A large portion of that debt came from unpaid taxes owed to the IRS. The report noted that Gaye had sold most of his music royalty rights to Motown, though he retained his publishing rights. For several years after his death, all royalties from his estate, around $1 million annually, went directly to the IRS to cover what he owed. Marvin Gaye's former residence at 2101 South Gramercy Place in Los Angeles stands as a poignant testament to the life and untimely death of the legendary soul singer. Built in 1905 and designed by architect Sumner Hunt, the Tudor-style home was purchased by Gaye in 1975 for $30,500. However, due to escalating financial difficulties and substance abuse issues, he transferred ownership to his parents within 2 years. The property, encompassing 5,352 square feet with 5 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, also includes a detached 2-car garage with an upstairs guest house. In 1987, Gaye's sisters deeded the home to the Marvin P. Gaye Jr. Memorial Foundation, which sold it the following year. Despite changes in ownership, the house's exterior remains remarkably similar to its appearance in 1984, serving as a somber landmark for fans and historians alike. Despite the all struggles, Gaye's legacy endured. He was posthumously inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1987. And there you have it. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you enjoyed it and want to hear more, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when the next video drops. See you next time.